Alright everybody, thanks for joining me here. We are on the live stream for the Asian session for December the 13th. So, as you can see, we had some news events happen this morning here during the New York session around 8 to 8:30. Caused a lot of movement in the market here, so 8:30 we had CPI release for the US pairs, and a lot of movement happened. A lot of buying volume came in, at least for the euro dollar, pretty much causing the value of the US dollar to go down here. So we'll get started on the market analysis in just a few here, setting up a couple of things, and then we'll probably go ahead and set up at least one of the entry zones that I'll be sending out to the VIP entry zones group for the evening. Oh man. So just now the open of the Asian session, so so the first thing I want to do is go through the entry zones that I sent out to the group yesterday for the 12th, and we'll take a look to see how those played out for the evening, or for the New York session and London session early this morning. I'll probably start with the dollar yen, or actually the euro dollar, but the first one we'll go off of here. So before we do the analysis on the entry zones that I sent out yesterday, I'm just going to take a look to see where price is on each of the pairs that I typically monitor. Haven't really had much of a chance after this news event to really look at too much, so kind of get an idea of where we are on these. Definitely had a lot of movement. Okay, I know I didn't have a pair set up on this one here. And I did send out an entry zone for gold yesterday, I believe. Let me check here. Yeah, I did send one out yesterday for gold pair as well, so we'll do a recap of that. And of course, whenever there's news events, I don't typically, I'm out of the market at that point. So we'll kind of go through it and see what happened before the session, before the 8:30 news release this morning. There was one actual entry zone that was playing out right before the news came out, that I was kind of communicating with members in the group, and I did advise to before the news dropped, at least move your stop loss to break even, if you were in the position, and that was for the AJ, I believe, Aussie dollar. This one here, yeah. So we'll get to that one in just a moment here, and we'll kind of explain exactly what happened on that one and talk about the entry zones and set up a new entry zone for at least a euro-dollar pair for this evening, and then I'll set up the other entry zones for the remaining pairs for the group for going into the London session. So we'll take care of that in just a second. All right. Oh, man. Alright, so let's go through the entry zones first. We'll go ahead and touch on the euro-dollar pair for this morning and see exactly what happened on that one. Alright, so minimize that. So what I ended up doing, so actually let me just show you guys a screenshot of the entry zone that I took yesterday to send out to the group. So at that moment we were kind of at this high here, and we were overall, before all of this mess happened today, we were trending upward. So what I wanted to see, and you guys can probably tell a little bit here with this screenshot. So this is on the 15-minute view and this is on the 1-hour view. Let's see if you guys can still see that clearly. Yeah. So I was wanting price to basically come back down to this support level here on the 1-hour time frame to go ahead and reject and make a move up. So if we go back to the 15-minute, this is what we're looking at here basically. Here, where is it at? Here. Nope. Pull that back up. Okay, so this is basically, trying to see if I can kind of make this look a little bit better here to match up. Yeah. So this is what we're looking at. We were right in this zone here, and that's right about at this point here. So as far as before all the news event came out, I was wanting price to push down to this level and have a potential for a buy entry to be set up at this level here. But of course, as we can see, price never actually came back down to that zone to give us the rejections that we would look for to confirm a buy position. Instead, it kept climbing up. Came right back into that 1-hour resistance up here. So none of this was really being monitored, at least by me, to take any type of position on this one until price got back down to this 1-hour zone. But since it never did, there was never actual position set up or developed for me to actually take a trade on that. So didn't have a entry on that point. We'll talk about the news event a little bit later. Just kind of want to run through some of the entry zones first. Let's do, so we'll do the Aussie yen later because that's the one that actually played out, but I ended up advising to move stop losses to break even because it was pretty much playing out while right before the actual news event came out. So and you'll kind of see why I told everybody to move to a stop loss to break even on that one if they were in the trade. But let's do the Aussie dollar next. So we were kind of following the same pattern for the euro dollar on the Aussie dollar pair. Wanted the price to actually come down to this 1 hour support level, but in this one I was actually looking for a sell position if price broke down. So before all this movement here, if we're looking at the 1 hour time frame, what I was looking at is basically that we were no longer making higher highs on the Aussie dollar. So I was hoping for a price to break below again, make a new low, and come back up to retest this level here for a sell position. And you can see that a little bit clearer here. So looking at this movement here, we had the high came down to the support level right in this area, came back up and rejected off the 4 hour major resistance level and pretty much just bounced off of it. So we created a lower high at that point, and then as we came back down, as you can tell, it didn't really bounce off of it to make a climb back up. Instead, it broke right below it and created a new low. So that's pretty indicative of, at least at the moment, that we were doing a downtrend. So I was only looking for sell positions at that point based on the most recent movement. So a high here, higher low, we were moving down. So once we got to this area here, I wanted price to basically break below this level here and then come back up to retest it, give us the confirmation candles, the wicks that would indicate that we were wanting to actually continue to move down. But as you can see, at least for the Aussie dollar, price never broke down below that zone to actually give us a potential for the trade to even set up. So that entry zone is just set aside. We don't take a trade on that one either. And that's something that I hope that a lot of people, at least those that are trading on a regular basis, are pretty understanding and accepting that you don't necessarily need to trade all the time. If something doesn't set up, if you don't see your strategy set up, if you don't see your what you're looking for in the price action to actually develop a bias for, or at least develop into the direction for the bias you have for the price, then you don't take the trade and you just keep it as simple as that. There's no need to overthink it. There's no need to try to trick yourself into seeing something that's not there. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. If your trade strategy is not developing, then you don't trade it. You don't worry about it. Just set it aside and move on to the next trade. You don't want to kind of overthink things when it comes to trading and stress yourself out. At least in my point in my trading career, I'm pretty much just, if I see something, then I'll take it. If I don't, then I'll leave it alone. I'm only going to look at the charts for maybe half an hour, maybe an hour on a good day, if I actually want to place a trade on that day. But outside of that, if there's nothing there, then I just don't trade, and just move on. But as far as the Aussie dollar, the entry zone price never came down below that entry zone to come back and reject it. So we move on from that one here. So that's what I was looking for in this screenshot that I sent out to the entry zones group. Since we didn't develop that, we didn't take it, right? So moving on to the next one. We already talked about the euro dollar. So the pound yen. So on the 15-minute chart, as you can tell, clearly we're uptrending at this point, right? So looking for buy positions, but in order for me to take a buy position, I was hoping for price to, even though we were at that 4 hour major resistance level, I was wanting price to break above it, well above it, not just this little movement that you're seeing here. I hope you guys can actually see that pretty clearly, but I'll jump over to that here. So we're uptrending here. We're at the 4 hour resistance level here, right? So let's jump over to the pound yen, the live chart. So before all that movement happened, this is what we were looking at basically. This is at the point that I took the screenshot. Price was right in that 4 hour key zone, right? So right in here. So based on the way that I usually draw the arrows when I send out the screenshots for the entry zones to the group, you want to pay attention to the actual arrows as well, because that's where I want price to at least make it to close in that area and actually come back down to retest a key level like the 4 hour major resistance, or at least at that point it would be a support level. I want price to make a move well up above it and then come back down. I don't like these little pokes at the zone because you're still generally in that area. You want to see kind of a lot more volume, pushing it well above that area, and then come back down to retest it. Something like this is not a valid break and retest. This is not a valid break and retest. This is not a valid break and retest. All of this movement that you're seeing here, these are not valid break and retest. You want price to go well above that area and then come back down to retest it. So as far as this one, though we were at the entry zone, price did not actually come up to that top of the arrow that I was indicating for the group. So not really a valid setup that I would have taken on that one. Of course, I didn't take on that one. Price was just pretty much just consolidating at that 1 hour level until the news release came out and pretty much plummeted the pound's value against the dollar. You know, it's kind of weird because the euro dollar just skyrocketed against the US dollar, but the pound dollar plummeted against it. So at least in this, well, no, this is the pound yen, so it's not with the actual dollar pair involved in this one. So the British pound against the yen. My apologies. But in this one, like I said, price didn't make it to at least well above it like I was expecting for it to come back down and retest. So no valid buy position on this entry zone as well. And as you can tell, the news just kind of, and if you watch any of the content that I've put out on YouTube already, or if you join SyllaFX.com and get the course there, I always indicate that I don't trade during news events. If I am in a position and it's just taking forever to play out and right before the news event comes out, if I'm in the profit, I'm going to go ahead and set my stop loss to break even. If I'm in the negatives at the time, I'm probably going to close out the trade and just take a small loss at that point, and let the news play it out, because I do not trade the news event, and I don't stay in a position during news events like that. So, but this one just pretty much just plummeted down on that CPI release for the dollar pairs, or the US dollars. So let's move on to the next entry zone that I sent out. Alright, so the pound USD, pound dollar. Let's jump over to that one. So on this movement on the 15-minute chart, I was basically wanting to see price make it above these highs here, break these highs and make it well above it, just like we were looking at for the pound yen. So break above these highs here and come back down and actually retest for a buy position. So let's see what actually played out on that one, right? So this was this area here. So if you compare the two, this is what you're looking at basically, right? You got that zone here and these highs that we were looking to break above. So go ahead and move that back out of the way. So wanted price to come back up, and if you notice the placement of my arrow, right? And like I said, I just mentioned this on the other one. So whenever I set up my entry zones, I sends out to this group. Pay attention to the arrows. Pay attention to where I'm placing those, because I want price to not only break those highs, but I want it to go up to at least a certain level and come back down to reject the high that it just broke. That becomes a support level, right? So if you notice, it just so happens that the top of that arrow is at the top of this, the rejection, right? So I want price to break above this level, come up to here, and then reject it to come back down. Now, as you can tell, when the news events came out though, all that pretty much goes out the window. My strategy is not to be used during news releases. I don't trade during news releases. I don't follow my trading strategy during news because I don't trade it at all. So because price never actually got up to that level initially to come back down and retest it, all of this movement is irrelevant here. All of this news spike that happened, don't trade it, don't care about it. I just ignore it and wait for price to kind of go back into a market structure that I'm pretty familiar with, and what I actually trade based off price action and market structure, and that's it. All this news event stuff, crap, I don't care, you know. So kind of skyrocketed up here, so invalid trade entry here. Let's do the next one is gold. So I don't very often send out entry zones for the gold pair, but I did in this evening, at least yesterday evening for the session coming up. So let's jump up. Actually, what was I looking at for this one? So it's basically just looking for sell positions on gold here, because as you can see, broke this structure here for a lower low, created a lower high from that movement up here, broke the structure again, lower low, lower high, lower low, downtrend, right? So we're always looking for a sell position, at least in that instance of that movement based on the 15-minute chart. Alright, so if we jump over to gold where it is now, let's ignore the news event because my god. Alright, so this is what I was just looking at pretty much from this entry zone that I sent out. We were coming back up to that support or that resistance level on the 15-minute level and wanted to reject it and come back down for a sell position. So that one did kind of reach into it. Unfortunately, this did not give me the rejection wick that I would have taken for a sell position on this one here. So yes, price did come back into that resistance area here that I was indicating, and that's great because that's where I wanted price to actually go, but we did not get the confirmation that it wanted to reject. So this would not have been a trade that I would have taken for a sell. It would have been fine, I mean, if somebody did, because I mean it did start bouncing off of it and came back down a little bit. This would have been one if you did take, you would want to move your stop loss to break even once you reach the 50% mark on your take profit. So on this one, this was aiming for about what, 60 pips? Yeah, for 60 pips. So once you got to about 30, you should have already moved your stop loss to break even in case something like this happens and it comes back up. But again, what I look for on the entry zone, price to come back into the zone, not only give me at least one rejection wick into the zone, maybe two to take a sell position. Didn't actually get that rejection wick, so this has not been one that would confirm that price wanted to bounce off of it. Even though it did come down off of it for a little bit of time here, it would not have actually reached our take profit of 60 pips on that one. So this would not have been one that I would have taken. And then of course the news. That was a hell of a move on that one. Let's see. Wow. 250, 300 pips on that one. Wow. A lot of movement. For those that trade the news event, man, you guys got heart of steel over there. Like I would not be. I do not trade the news at all. A lot of money to be made in there, but with that great risk involved too. So good luck to those who trade the news event. And the last entry zone was for the dollar yen. So what I was looking for on that one was basically a break, a retest of the 4-hour major resistance level here. So what I was hoping for is basically, I mean, we were kind of continuing to trend up. We had a high here, higher high, higher high, higher high. We're moving up. Once we got to that 1 hour or that 4-hour key level here, that red line, wanted to see price break above it, come at least to that area where the arrow tops out, and actually come back down to retest for a buy position. Now if we look here, of course that did not play out, and price just pretty much consolidated in that area until the news came out, and then plummeted all the way down. Like, see how much that was here. Almost 250. Yeah, about 250 pips on that one. A lot of movement. If you look at it on the 1 hour time frame, I mean, it makes sense that it didn't break above it because it is a 4-hour major zone. So for it, I mean, based on the movement that I'm seeing here, we're trending up. So for me to go ahead and take a buy position, because I'm not taking a buy position right when we are at that level, I want price to break above it, well above it, come back to retest it and move up. We didn't get that. and I was not anticipating any type of move down because at the moment we were trending up. Now the news event, of course, throws that all off. So outside of the entry zones, actually there was one more that I wanted to talk about because this is one that actually played out and gave a valid signal to take a buy position on, and that was the Aussie yen. Let's see. Yeah, so this pair. So let's jump over to that on the live chart. Alright, so Aussie yen. So initially the entry zone that I sent out was for price to break above the 4-hour major resistance level up here, come up to that level, the top of the arrow. I'll show you why that's important again, and come back down to retest that key zone, bounce off of it, give us the rejection wick, and then take a buy position there. Now, on this one, as you can see, kind of zoom in a little bit. So, was looking for price to come up above the zone, come back down to retest it, right? So now we did get that movement right here. So let me zoom into that. I can go ahead and get rid of these. So again, with the arrow, the placement of it is still very important when I send out these entry zones to the group. I want price to get at least into that area, and as you can see, when price broke above the 4-hour major zone, it came into that area and rejected off of it to come back and retest. Now I'll wait until it gets back into that zone and then look for the rejection wick to indicate a buy position to go ahead and take a buy on that one, right? So this is what happened here. This is what would have been a valid entry position here. Now this one I didn't actually take myself at the time because it did play out while I was not actually trading. This is before the New York session coming out, but for those that do trade the London session into the New York session, this would have been a valid entry point for you guys to take. Now, the amount of time that it took to play out though kind of leads you into the news event releasing at 8:30 Eastern time when the CPI came out for the US. Now, again, if you're looking in here, price came to that zone above the 4-hour chart or 4-hour major support, came back down, retested, gave us the nice wick here. This is a clear indication that price wants to continue moving up. This is a valid buy position off of that entry zone. Now if you took a buy position here, you would have never actually got hit with your stop loss until the news came out. And remember what I said, I don't trade during news event. My trading strategy goes out of the window during news events. Pretty much when news comes out, nobody's strategy is going to be logical. It's not going to hold up. It's not going to do anything. Unless you got some kind of secret recipe to trading the news, then great for you. But as far as my personal trading strategies that I implement, whether it's support and resistance, trend trading, and supply and demand, all of that goes out of the window when news event comes out. So if you were still in that trade at that point, and actually with the Discord group, let me see. It's a little bit above here. So yeah, this is where I had indicated that if you were looking at the Aussie dollar and in that position, you would want to go ahead and at least move your stop loss to break evens because of the news that was coming out. I have no idea what price is going to do when news comes out, so be very careful with that. Don't stay in a trade like that if you don't know how to trade the news, which I don't, so I don't pretend to, so I don't trade it at all. All right. Go ahead and zoom out of this one a bit here. So as far as the entry zones, yeah, there was one that I was monitoring that would have been a valid buy position, but of course, like I said, once it got close to the news event, you definitely want to get out of that trade, or at least set your stop loss to break even, because I mean, you at least would have had a stop loss in place, but it would have been a losing trade if you held on to it during that event. So what I'm gonna do is look at the euro dollar release for the entry zone for this evening. Take a look, see what could be setting up for tomorrow's session. All right, let's see. Check to see if we have any news that's coming out for tomorrow. Hey, thanks for joining, man. Alright, so let's check to see what we got going on for tomorrow's session. Got some Fed news around 2 Eastern, so at least for the session that I typically trade, will be pretty wide open for 8 to 12. And I will stay away from those FMOC news. So alright, so let's do this. How'd your trading day go? You take any trades? I can't hear you right now. No. Yeah, we can jump into the mic there. Let's see. Let me mute the Zoom session here. All right, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah,
Can now. Yep.
How you doing, man? Everything okay?
All good. All good. How'd your trading day go?
I just watched, to be honest. I was tempted, but I've traded the news once and lost a lot of money, so I said, let me watch this.
Yeah, that's how I am about it. It's I don't know what the hell the news is gonna do to price, so I stay away from it.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the like an ascending triangle on the Euro USD,
Hmm.
but even then, I mean, the news can fake you out, you know.
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of times where you get that initial spike in the first 15 minutes, and then it'll just start plummeting down. So yeah,
Yeah.
no. We could have had. I mean, I could have easily
Now I'm
seen
hearing
something.
because the CPI numbers came out lower than expected.
Hmm.
Tomorrow, the Fed interest rates are supposedly only going to be 50 points instead of 75 points, which should drive the euro up again even more.
Whew, man.
That, that, that's what I was just from watching videos and everything.
Yeah.
And even on the Forex platform, if you see the consensus, it says 50 basis points instead of 75.
That'll be good for the other pairs then, at least the euros and the yen. So we'll see how that plays out tomorrow, but I'll stay away from that by that time. So
I think it comes out at like 2:30 or something, right?
yeah, yeah, about like two or so. Yeah, 2:30. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel, especially after watching your academy and just getting an idea of your trading plan with like support, resistance, breakup structure coming back. Because I feel a little bit more comfortable setting up trades, but I
Yeah.
haven't I haven't taken one yet. I've
Yeah.
set a few up just to go through the night, but then again, I feel a little bit worried because I'm not waiting for that win.
Right. I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
that's so. Do you have like a? Do you play like the entry orders on there just to automatically take place, or?
Yeah, exactly. I put two, what I think they're called limit orders. How do you call them?
Yeah, buy limits
Some
or
challenges,
stop.
some strategies.
Yeah, I don't use them, so I know it's like buy limits and stuff like that. But yeah,
I see a lot of areas of value where support are meeting resistance, meeting with 61.8 Fibonacci. You've got a nice breaking structure. That's kind of my idea,
yeah.
but I don't know if I should just wait.
I mean, my only thing is that with the buy limits thing, because you want to at least see that price is in fact going to reject it. You
Right.
can catch some extra money if it does get to that level and automatically start to bounce off of it before it shows you that it wants to bounce off of it. But then you're kind of trying to predict where the market wants to go at that point without it showing that it's trying to reverse back. So
Right.
I've been burnt a bit by that in the past, so that's why I was kind of stay away from it. I'll leave the little extra by waiting for the confirmation, and then just kind of take at least a little bit of the profit from there. But um, it just depends on what works for you, to be honest. But yeah,
I think I'm just a little bit anxious to like be successful and win. I think that's my issue. Like I don't want to miss the trade. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
I
want to
get you.
get a few good trades under my belt, and maybe I'm rushing the process a little bit.
I mean, it's one of those things where you don't want to kind of see trading as like the sole um, your sole income kind of thing. And I know it's not that for you right now, but when you get to the point where you're making so much money from it, and you feel like you have to trade in a day, and you're gonna probably trick yourself into seeing things that may not actually be there, or at least not get
Right.
confirmation that it's actually there, and go ahead and jump into the trade, and then it just continues going against you. Um, One of the things is like we could probably actually see one on this one here. So like one usually, so like if I'm looking for a buy position on this, so I see a lot of volume going up on this pair, and I'm seeing this as a high that I want structure to be broken. So I'm expecting price to go up here, at least into this level here, and then come back down to retest it and then bounce off of it. Well, I could have been doing it or expecting that exactly here. Price comes down into that break of the structure and bounces off of it, but it doesn't continue moving up, and within half an hour it plummets right back against me. And this would not necessarily would have been a valid buy position, just because it's not really rejection. It's not really, it's not what, at least what I look for on the 15-minute chart to confirm that I want to take a buy. So this is one that I would not have taken. But if you have like one of those limit orders in there and it's automatically going to take it when price gets to it, I would hope that you have something like following up to that to move your stop losses to break even once it does bounce, if it continues in your direction versus coming back against you and coming out to take you out of the trade kind of thing. So I don't know if you...
So the real confirmation is not just bouncing off that level, but having a nice wick.
Yeah, that's what I look for, is having an actual rejection wick. So even a couple of these, so like when I see this first rejection into this zone here, I would not take this trade here. But once I see that second wick that goes into that zone and bounces away from it and then closes out in the direction that I'm hoping it's going to go, then I would take a sell position on this one. But other than, like, if I get maybe like one of these wicks by itself, I would take a position on this one here if I was looking for a sell position in that direction. But something like this is not valid for me at all, so I would stay away from it.
So are you saying it's like double the confirmation when you see it test that area, then go back into it, test it one more time, and show that wick,
like for this one here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just because... Yeah, so just because on this one, it's not really the exact... So this rejection wick is not... On its own, it's not confirmation for me to take that position. If it was something like this forming, where it was kind of stagnating into that area, and then it gave me a rejection wick and closed out positive to move back up, if I had this wick here, or this candle, except it was red up here, then I would go ahead and take it there. But the way it was still kind of moving into that zone and bounced away from it initially, I would want it to come back up and retest it again and close below it to take a sell position on it. But at least that's what I found has worked more consistently for me, at least from the 15-minute chart perspective. Because it could look a lot different if you're trading like the 5-minute chart. So
More confirmation, the better.
Yep. And typically, I mean, even if you like, if
The little learning curve that I'm going through right now is just sometimes you want to get on a trade, but sometimes you really got to be patient to get in on the trade. So then when it gets there, it's like you want to get in, but even then, it's like, wait,
yeah,
this is the right trade to get in on.
yeah, because it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't have to respect that zone. It can just blow right through it. And you just got to wait for it to actually show you that there is resistance there. There is volume there going against it to make it turn back around against that zone. So, yeah.
What are you seeing here for a setup for tomorrow?
So, I always start off on the 4-hour chart here. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm only looking for buy positions on this. I don't have a top yet for a 4-hour entry or 4-hour key zone. Maybe if I like kind of zoom out well above in the past. But that's like way too far back for me to really see it as valid. Maybe something up here would work.
As a take profit, you mean?
Yeah. So that's the most that I would take.
What about the support level right there on the left where you had marked the tops?
This here?
Would that be like the next take profit area?
It could be, but I mean, this is back from like June though of this year, so I would want the recent action to kind of form that new zone to confirm it before I actually look at an exit point on it. So if I were to take set up like a buy position on this, one, I don't have a top that's near outside of the one I set up way up here. So if I go down to the 1-hour chart, this is the recent top that I would look for an exit, just because I see that it rejected here. So
that would be the most safe place to take your profit.
Yep. So now this line, though it is with this, it tops out at this point here, I would honestly want to move that down a bit. to kind of go in line with these highs, because there's a lot more rejection at that level. Yeah. So then my entry zone would be right in those wicks here. And that'll tap right into this peak here and the most recent, well, not most recent, but the ones that had more wicks and rejection or resistance at that point here. So if price did make its way back down, I would have wanted to kind of go well into that zone and give me at least 1 to 2. With this being a 4-hour level, it would probably be safer to get more than one rejection at that level to actually show confirmation that it wants to actually buy into it. This may actually this one here or this one.
Yeah, that one.
So depending if we're if we want the market to actually fill this entire gap, because you have pretty much from here all the way down to this level that could get filled in just for a correction of price based on news event is what actually drove all that up. But do we think it's going to come all the way down to that level again before the news comes out tomorrow? Because if that's planning to drive this price back up, it's more likely that it may bounce at a key level instead of breaking through it and then coming back and breaking way above it from that news release.
I don't know why I get so hooked on finding where resistance and support leaders and means of getting it as like an area of value.
I mean,
Like with the 61.8, do you use Fibonacci by the way?
nah.
You just straight off support resistance.
Yeah, just market structure pretty much. And most of the key levels you'll start to notice are based on the 1-hour time frame, because that's where you see a lot more strength in it. On the major time frames, like the 4 hours, if there's like the red lines are the 4-hour levels that I mark up. If there's a good bounce off of that, then this will be a pretty easy support and resistance trade off of those. On the 1-hour level, I want to see those rejection wicks to actually bounce off of it to move off. Usually my entry zones are going to be based on the 1-hour time frame. If I do see one on the 15, then it's got to be one that's got hit at least like 2 or 3 times on the 15-minute chart. But I mean, I really don't think it's going to make it all the way back down to this level, just because there's that 4-hour zone here that's probably going to cause a lot of resistance. And what I can honestly see, let me see if it actually happened here.
Are you a big fan of using DXY as an indicator?
Nah.
Not at all.
Nope. I just take a look at the bear chart itself and see what the structure is on it. So I don't see that actually set up. What I was looking for is more of like a supply and demand trade. It kind of did it at this point here. Let's see. It's not a lot of market structure break though, so nah, that wouldn't have been a valid one. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I mean, with all the rejection that we're seeing here, probably will be easier on the 1 hour, but got 1, 2, 3, 4 rejections off of it, and then a final break that happened from the news. Now that we're above it, I don't think we're going to really break below it, and if we do, the most would be at this level here. In these rejections, I don't see it coming all the way down here. But if I do have a buy position, it'll be right at the top of this zone here. Stop loss about, probably give it 20 on this one here, just because it's at that level, and it could come down into this. And then right before we get to the top, I would take only about maybe 60 pips of that. Almost a 1 to 3 risk to reward ratio, but that would be a quick take on it. Hopefully this happens during the London session instead of waiting until the news, but maybe even early New York. But usually when FOMC comes out, you'll see kind of price consolidate and not really do much because it's waiting for the news release, and then it'll take off from there.
Right, right. I think that's my thing sometimes. Just being on the losing side of trading, sometimes I get like too conservative with my entry points.
Like where would you look for an entry on this one? Were you looking at it coming back down to that level, or?
Uh, Initially, before this call, oh actually no, I actually put it right there. I put it at 1.05760. Sorry, I was looking at the AUD USD. Yeah, I put it pretty
Yeah, right
much
here.
like where you were saying.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this wouldn't be a bad point to enter it in, because even if it, like I said, if price does come back into this zone here, I mean, it's not unlikely for it to break below it a little bit into these wicks, and that's right where you're talking about your zone being here for a buy position. So that wouldn't be a bad one. Just make sure you get that confirmation that it wants to reject it, because if it continues down, it could potentially correct itself all the way back down. But I don't see it happen. But you still want to get the confirmation on that. So
I mean, that's the area of value, though. I mean, there's going to be so many people hopping in on the trade right there. They're seeing the same thing that we're seeing, no?
yeah, yeah,
I think we should be. This should be a nice trade. You tell
yeah.
me.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking at. I mean, euro dollar and the dollar yen is the one that I usually trade a lot, especially being during the New York session. Um, but I'll be looking at this one tomorrow. I'll probably get up maybe around like 3 or so and see what it's doing during London. Huh?
I was thinking of doing the same. By the way, you said you were from Indiana, but you're on Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
You live on the East Coast?
No, Indiana is Eastern time.
Indiana's Eastern Standard Time?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's standard, but I know it's like it's what 8:56 here. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a bit of days ahead of you.
Yeah. But that's the plan, at least for that one.
What are you seeing on AUD USD?
Let's
By the
see.
way, I'm starting to realize now too. I used to just stick with Euro USD. A lot of these markets, especially if they share the same currency, they pretty much resemble one another now.
Yeah, it
Like Euro
gives.
USD should have the same movement as AUD USD, more or less. No?
Well, so it'll give the same type of movement. It'll have some correlation with it. Just be aware of their zones though, because I've seen a lot where, let's say I set up. If I was looking for this price to come down to this zone here, and we go down to the AUD, you would think it would come all the way down to this area here, but it may not necessarily reach there. Even if the euro dollar goes all the way down into here, the AUD may stay right around this level and never actually come back down. But once the euro dollar starts bouncing up off of that area to come back up, then the Aussie dollar will go ahead and come up as well. So just be careful of the correlation of their zones themselves. The movement in general may be similar, but the amount of movement that it does are likely going to be different. Yeah.
Yeah, on this one, put I pretty much where we had spoken in chat at 0.67%.
Let's see.
Which is pretty much at
This
that
here.
previous high just before that spike on the shoulder.
You said 1.6 what?
6.67810.
Right here. It's kind of similar to the euro dollar one here, because you would have to push below these highs in here to get it down, way down here. I'm not 100% that it would push all the way down. If it did, this would be the lowest that I would think it would go, though. and then it will pretty much buy back up. But if I was set up a zone on this one, I would be looking at this area.
Pretty much whenever we get a clean break like that, we're always looking for the previous high.
Right. Yep. We get all that movement, and that's kind of what I was explaining earlier on the Aussie yen. Zoom into that here. So that clean break you're talking about is, so like instead of price kind of like stagnating at that zone, even though it is breaking above it, I wanted to make a clear movement up above it and stay above it for a while and come back down and retest it. So kind of the same thing here. Even though it was the news that caused it, it's still valid that, I mean, price is stagnating way above here. A lot of times you might get, I'm not even sure which news events really do this, but you'll get a kind of a big spike like this in like a half an hour's time frame, and then you'll see price go ahead and start making its way back down into where it originally started within the same exact session. So just kind of be aware of those, but even if it did happen during the session, I would still expect it to bounce off at this area anyways.
By the way, what drives that? I don't understand why sometimes we get such a huge spike and then it'll just delay so much, and sometimes we get such a huge spike and then it'll spike right back down.
Yeah, that's the point that I have no idea. That's why I don't trade it. I can't predict that at all. I am not very good at that at all, so I stay away from it. But I see it happen all the time. I just can't never get a good strategy behind it, so I just leave it alone. But I mean, a lot of people, I think they refer to it as just like a market gap, or have to fill back in that gap for that movement, just like a price correction kind of thing. Sometimes it happens in the same session. Sometimes it'll just take a while for price to come back down. From what I used to use on Fibonacci, this looks like a perfect Fibonacci setup kind of thing, where you'll see price kind of come down into this area. This may be like near that 0.68 or that golden zone.
It's literally right on 61.
It is? Okay, yeah. So right at those breaks, I mean, it lines right up into that area here for rejection. But that's because I think your Fibonacci would be starting like way down here up to this top, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it just so happens, I mean, it lines right up with the market structure as well. And for those, the more confluence you have with it, the more likely they'd actually respect that zone and bounce off of it.
And by the way, I don't know, because you trade exactly. A lot of the times I've set these limit orders,
Mhm.
and it'll go to that point, but my trade won't enter unless it's like 10 pips, or like a pip or 10 pips less than what my entry is.
Yeah, because the difference in the ask and bid price.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of, depending on who your broker is, you might get hit with that. So you might want to, like, if you're going to trade that way, kind of set it maybe a couple of pips above your actual level that you're planning to enter in, just to make sure it gets triggered. Just be aware that if you're not waiting for the confirmation, though, just make sure you have a stop loss there too, because it could just continue going down. So yeah.
Do you plan on waking up for the London session today?
Yeah, I'll probably get up around like 3 or so. Give it about an hour. Well, London starts at 3, or is it 2 exactly? I think it's 3 o'clock. Let me double check. Yeah, I think it's 2 that it starts here.
Now, one thing I really learned from you is this whole 3-to-1 ratio, especially if you're like setting up 3 trades and 1 fails but 2 hit, you're still good.
Yep.
Or even if 2 hit and 1 hits, you're still good.
Yeah, you still end up being profitable on that one.
Right.
I really like that. That definitely changes the game completely.
Yep. You got to give yourself the edge because I mean, like I said, even if you're trading even if you're not using any strategy, just going in blind, for the most part, you have a 50% chance of winning or losing, depending if you're using stop losses on it. It's just what's giving you the edge is not only the zones where you actually enter into the market, because if you're somewhere like, let's say you're like here at the price and you decide, hey, I'm gonna either buy or sell, there's no reaction at that area here. You want to enter in at the point where price is going to react to that zone, and it has reacted to it before. And at that point, it's just you deciding, am I going to buy or sell? At that point, yeah, you're 50-50. But you would be breaking even if you're losing the same amount that you're winning. But if you give yourself that extra risk to reward, whether it's 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, then you're going to be profitable regardless if you're just doing that blindly for the most part. Just give yourself the edge with the zones that you're entering in and the risk to reward ratio and having a stop loss. But the stop loss is going to be useless if you're entering in like in the middle of an area between two entry points. So
Play poker by any chance?
I used to.
So much of this relates to poker.
Yeah.
But another way.
Yeah.
Confirmation and so many things.
Yeah, managing your risk and just kind of
Yeah.
planning ahead with it. What was I looking at? Okay, so the sessions. Oh, that's the actual video. I don't know, my computer's, maybe I got too many things running here. Yeah, so it's 3 o'clock that it does start. Okay. So yeah, I'll probably get up at 3 and see at least what the euro dollar is doing. And maybe the pound dollar, because that one is pretty active during London as well.
What do you think about the USDT?
Let's see. It's got a long way to go to make it back up here, so I don't see that happening. Let's see. At least for the upcoming session, I would honestly be looking at this level for an immediate reaction to it. I would be really iffy about taking a sell here, though, because that is a lot of market correction to happen there. That gap that could be filling back in. So if we got something like this, came back in at least to line up with this zone, and then maybe a rejection at this level to take a buy. If we get something like that, then I would look for a buy position. I would be hesitant on taking a sell on this one, even though we have all of that movement coming down and breaking below this level. This just looks like it's going to correct on the next session.
I was thinking maybe a pullback to 136.8. Maybe place a sell at that point. But this is the only one. The Euro USD, AUD USD, I felt okay. But this one, I don't know.
Would it take a sell at this zone here, or?
Yeah, 136.850. I think I had looked at it on the 4-hour chart. There was a lot of support meeting with. Yeah, it's literally.
I think you're looking at right here. Yeah.
But yeah, I looked at it on the 1-hour chart, and I found that there was a lot of resistance meeting with support, and I marked it up with 61.8 Fibonacci as well from
Yeah, so my only hesitation with that would be for me to hold this as a key level, it would have had to hold up against price recently. But when I'm looking at that, I'm seeing, okay, if this is a rejection here, price broke above it, broke below it, broke back above it, broke below it again. It's breaking right through it recently. So I wouldn't feel comfortable with this being the level to actually trade at.
Gotcha.
But if it's something like this where it was recently respected and then it broke above it, I could see a valid sell here. My only thing is this movement isn't being done by the market on its own. This is news causing that to happen. So I could see it try to correct itself, break above that zone, and come back down to retest that to continue that correction back up.
Gotcha.
And it could have valid resistance here because there was a lot of consolidation here too. But I wouldn't feel comfortable taking a trade there.
A little bit more to the left. I think that's what really got
Here
me.
or
See how there's a lot of support meeting with resistance.
yeah, all throughout here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there definitely is. It's just the way it looks to me. Yeah, there's a few points like rejection here, consolidation here, rejection, and then it just seems like it's moving as it pleases across the zone at that point. So I wouldn't, at least recently, I wouldn't trust that as a point to enter in. Maybe an exit point before, because you don't know if it's going to hold up or if it's just going to blast right through it. So if I did take a buy here, maybe exit out at this point here before it actually gets into that zone.
Gotcha, gotcha. I'm happy you told me that. This is the only one I don't know. They rubbed me wrong with. I didn't like this one.
Yeah.
The way I set it up. At least now I know the feeling of when I set up a trade and it's not a good one.
And I mean, it's just a matter of kind of, you got to be really picky about what you take, because it's not about kind of, because I can see what you're seeing there in that zone, because yes, there is a lot of rejection there. But I would feel like you would kind of be tricking yourself into seeing that there's a valid trade there because there's a lot of rejection or being done at that level. It's just the recent action of it is not respecting that level at all to me.
And what about, I think this is what kind of convinced me as well. If you scroll out of it, you can see that there's a downward trend line, which I mean, or just in general, this market structure is bearish, no? The USD JPY.
For the most part, I would still see it trending
Correct
up.
and continue its way down.
I mean, the only part that would look bearish now is because of the news event, though, to me. But for the most part, I'm seeing uptrending on this one.
Gotcha. I think I scrolled down way too far. That's the thing. I need to not scroll out so far.
Yeah, because I mean,
Looking back from November of this year all the way from now, I found like a downward trend line on the tops of the resistance.
yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it like this, yes, we're still trending down, but that's if you're like swing trading. If I'm only in the market to take 40 to 50, 60 pips at a time, I'm looking at the recent trend based off of the 1 hour level. The 4 hour, the only thing I care about that is the major 4 hour zones to know where to exit in and where to look for a potential entry on the major zones. But as far as my actual trend, I'm only going off of the 1 hour level in the recent 1 hour movement. This, I don't care about this at all because that's news.
Which is the higher lows from that one to the one at the bottom of the
You talking about this one here?
Yeah, is that what gives you the confirmation that this is bullish? Correct?
Yeah, I mean, just the general higher lows that are being set up here. So if we go all the way back here, this will be an area that I would see to be broken to start the trend up. So we got a low, go up to that resistance, a higher low, break the resistance for a higher high, a higher low, break the structure again for a higher high, and then a higher low. Now it does stagnate a bit, but it doesn't break below this level until the news event happens. So that's why I would be kind of hesitant to take a sell here, because the news is what actually broke that structure. I could see it easily going back up and correcting itself and move back up and continue the uptrend.
Gotcha. I think I remember a few months ago seeing a move like this on the USD and yen, and then like the Japanese government had to jump in and it spiked their interest rates just to spike the currency back up or something like that.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Gotcha. So news, stay away from it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now I've seen people that consistently trade the news and are successful at it, but there's not really like I mean, I guess it's a strategy, but the way that they do it is they'll have like a buy limit or stop order or whatever it's called beyond the structure itself. So if news does cause it to break a structure, their order will kick in to go ahead and go with the movement, and they'll go ahead and take maybe like 40 to 50 pips out of it and then be done. And that's usually great if there's like CPI news that causes that, but that's still like really risky to me. So
yeah. I was talking to a friend about it, and he was telling me you can even put it both ways. You can put one on as a buy and one as a sell.
Yeah, exactly. Whichever way it goes, it'll kick you into it. Yeah. I don't feel comfortable with that at all. So I'm good.
Cool, man. This is helping me so much, to be honest. Just being able to talk to someone and see the chart. This is helping a lot. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, of course, no problem. But I'll get the rest of the entry zones marked up here. I think there was one that I saw on the pound dollar. Yeah, there was one that I was going to set up on this one here for a buy position. So I'll get that one marked up. So I already got the dollar, euro dollar already set up, but I'll get those sent out. But hopefully something good happens in the New York or in the London session, because once it gets close to New York, I got a feeling with the FMOC, it'll probably slow down a lot until that news breaks at 2.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Let's say one of our trades gets hit in the London session.
Mm-hmm.
Will you close out your trade before the news comes out at 2:30?
Oh yeah. At least if not close them out, if I'm at least like halfway into profit, I'll go ahead and at least move to the stop loss to break even. Yeah, just kind of the same thing I was showing for the Aussie yen this morning. Yeah.
Right. I saw that you had mentioned that.
Yeah. I wish I would have taken that trade, because I thought it was gonna go ahead and keep moving up and at least hit a take profit before the news came out, but it still would have ended up at a break even anyways. But that was the only one that I really saw actually get a confirmation with to take a buy on that.
Yeah. All right, man. I think I'm gonna go to bed trying to by 3 a.m.
All right, man. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you.
All right. I'll talk to you tomorrow. All right. All right, well, at least for those that are joined on the live stream here and we're watching it on YouTube, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for this evening, though. As you guys can kind of see how the trades are usually set up between the euro-dollar pair and the entry zones that I set up for that. I'll be sending out the entry zones for the VIP group this evening. I think I had 2 other entry zones that I wanted to actually set up to get those sent out. But if you guys are interested in joining the group or at least learning the trading strategy, the course is literally $1 right now on SyllaFX.com. You can join the free Discord group. The link is going to be in the description in the video and on SyllaFX.com as well. And as always, I do offer the VIP membership for the entry zones, where you get those daily entry zones for different currency pairs every weekday. So if you guys are interested in that, check that out as well on SyllaFX.com. But I'll catch you guys probably in the London session here. We'll see what happens at 3 a.m. Maybe we can catch a trade on the euro dollar, the dollar yen, or the pound dollar before tomorrow's news at 2:30. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Catch you guys in another one. Want to become a full-time trader? Start making money trading from home today with the SyllaFX VIP entry zones. Receive multiple trade entry zones every weekday for different currency pairs. You also get access to the full SyllaFX trading course, as well as live trading sessions. Go to SyllaFX.com now and join the VIP entry zones.